For many years, on the strength of green land ramp, black aristocrats, and reanimation, and blue cards, Yarok the Desecrated has dominated enters the battlefield strategies in MTG. With his ability to double the triggers of your opponent's ETB creatures and effects, there have been few other commanders that can stand up to the sheer value that Yarok can pull from the strategy. But today, I say, no more. No longer will we labor under the thumb of evil decks that employ Necropotence and Cyclonic Rift. No more will we watch our opponents cast Explosive Vegetation, not because it's any good, but just because they can and you can't. Today, we other colors fight back. We take their own game to them and rub it in their face because we can. Today, we ETB. Today, we reanimate. Today, we are Boros! Hello, beautifuls and handsomes, and welcome to the Uncommon Commander, a YouTube channel that I tell people is dedicated to spicy Commander content, but is actually dedicated to giving me an outlet to hear myself talk a lot. Well, I guess it's also giving you spicy Commander content. If I weren't creating spice, I wouldn't even want to do this. And today's flavor of spice? Why, Boros, ETB, Aristocrats, and Reanimation. Because Sultai is so 2019. Hofri Ghostforge, or is it Hofri Ghostforge? I'm just going to alternate between them throughout this thing, so whatever. Hofri Ghostforge is the commander we're building around today, and as you can see, he is a legendary dwarf cleric that costs 3 generic, a red, and a white mana, and has a 4/5 body. He also has a couple of very cool abilities. The first is a sweet +1/+1 anthem for your spirits that also gives them trample and haste. The second is seemingly more complicated, and it says, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except that it's a spirit in addition to its other types, and it has, when this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to your graveyard. So the main strategy of this deck will be to set up a sacrifice outlet, a reanimation card, and Hofri. Then we'll smash as many ETB creatures onto the board as we can, as fast as we can, sacrifice them, which will allow Hofri to make a token copy of them, getting their ETB ability to trigger again, and then you'll sacrifice the token and reanimate the ETB creature to get the trigger yet again. I also want to note today that using an average price of cards that are in non-damaged condition, today's deck costs, at the time of writing the script, $125.18 if buying it from TCG Player, and a lot less than that if you're willing to take on some damaged pieces of cardboard. And if you are, please consider using my affiliate links, which can be found in the video's description. If you're looking for other ways to support me because I'm like the hapless adult son that you never had, you can do so by becoming a patron of mine at Patreon and get some benefits for it, like early access to deck lists and stuff. Finally, there's the free way of supporting me, clicking the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. Now let's start with our ramp spells. Our mana rocks are going to be Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Prismatic Lens. Our creature-based ramp spells will be Cartographer's Hawk, Knight of the White Orchid, Alpine Guide, Boreas Charger, Burnished Heart, Cathodian, Core Cartographer, Solemn Simulacrum, and Stoic Farmer. Finally, we also have Wildfield Scarecrow, which isn't ramp but does find 2 lands from your library and puts them into your hand. You'll note that most of these are creatures, and a couple of them are even creatures that can sacrifice themselves. That'll be useful if we draw into them while we have Hofri on the table. I don't really mind paying 3 mana to sacrifice Burnished Heart on turn 5 when I know I'm getting another, better Burnished Heart right back, for free. Also, this is a lot of land ramp. Eat your heart out, green decks. Well, we'd better get our board set up for lots of Hofri usage, and that's going to require a couple of different types of cards, the first of which are sacrifice outlets. Our outlets are going to be Altar of Dementia, which we can use to mill our own stuff if wanted for later reanimation, Goblin Bombardment, Spawning Pit, the protection cards, Fanatical Devotion and Martyr's Cause, and the mana ramping outlets, Ashnod's Altar and Thermopod. And it's well and good to have ETB creatures, but how about static ETB payoffs? We've got some of those. We'll lead off with Impact Tremors and move on to the even harder hitting Pandemonium, Terror of the Peaks, and Warstorm Surge. Be careful with Pandemonium as it is symmetrical. And we also have creatures dying, so we should have some triggers for that as well. We'll start off with the creature token engines, Anax Hardened in the Forge and Requiem Angel. A bonus is that the angel actually creates spirit tokens, which get pumped by Hofri. Nice. We also have the direct damage cards, Outpost Siege and Stalking Vengeance. Outpost Siege can alternatively be used as Impulse Draw if you've chosen its cons mode. Next, I think we'll briefly show the protection cards for Hofri, as one of them is also an ETB trigger. These are Dauntless Bodyguard, Selfless Savior, such a good boy, Boros Charm, and Spirit Bonds. Even without the protection ability on it, the synergy with our commander on Spirit Bonds is just too good to pass up. That it also protects our commander is really a bonus. During all of this setup, we may have run across some permanents on our opponent's boards that we just can't tolerate the existence of. To help with that, we've got these removal spells: Disenchant, Seal of Cleansing, and the creatures Leonin Relic Warder, Duergar Hedgemage, Fiend Hunter, Mangara of Corridor, and Angel of Serenity. Now let's talk about these cards for a moment. I want to note that some of these creatures are more abusable in this deck than was probably intended when they were created. See, all of our sacrifice outlets are free, and can be used at instant speed. This means that if you have a creature whose ETB effect is on a separate line from its Leaves the Battlefield effect, you can cast your ETB creature, like Fiend Hunter, and sacrifice it in response to its own ETB trigger going on the stack. It'll then go to your graveyard, and its Leaves the Battlefield trigger will go on the stack on top of your ETB trigger. The Leaves the Battlefield trigger will resolve first, then the ETB will resolve, exiling the creature you targeted with Fiend Hunter forever. Angel of Serenity does this to 3 creatures, either on the battlefield or in graveyards, but the cool thing about her is that you can also use her to bring your own dead creatures back to your hand, or you can permanently exile someone else's creatures. She's super handy. And then we get to Mangara of Corridor. His ability is all on one line, but that doesn't mean he can't be abused. See, his cost is simply tapping him. You then sacrifice him before his ability resolves, which will put him in your graveyard for later reanimation, rather than exiling him. The permanent that you targeted with him still does get exiled. And before I forget, after that long diatribe, we do have some board wipes. These are Cataclysmic Gearhulk, Sunblast Angel, and, generously, Remorseful Cleric, who is, as a bonus, a spirit. Okay, that's probably more than enough about removal. Let's move on to card advantage. To put cards into our hand, we're running Inheritance, Skullclap, Thraben Inspector, Humble Defector, who can be sacrificed before being handed over, just like Mangara can be sacrificed before being exiled, Wall of Omens, Jar of Eyeballs, Magus of the Wheel, Relic Vial, and Combustible Gearhulk. Something extra to note here: Relic Vial isn't just a sacrifice outlet that draws us cards, it's also Blood Artist. You see Hofri, our commander? Yeah, he's a cleric. And since we're talking about card advantage, why not graveyard advantage? We have a lot of reanimation engines and some one-offs. The engines are Pulse Mage Advocate, Sun Titan, and Emiria Shepherd. But in conjunction with our commander, you can loosely add in Karmic Guide and Revelark to the engine category. Our one-off reanimation spells are Second Sunrise, Death or Glory, and Grimoire of the Dead. I really enjoy that we're running weird alternate versions of Fact or Fiction and Rise of the Dark Realms in our red and white deck. Something else to note here is another combo: Emiria Shepherd and one of Solemn Simulacrum or Cartographer and a free sacrifice outlet. With just a little fun manipulating the stack, like in our Fiend Hunter example, we get to have ourselves a real good animation and land ramp day. Oh yeah, also Revelark and Karmic Guide form an infinite combo, as long as there's a free sacrifice outlet on your board. So that's a 3-piece infinite combo. Oh, but you'll also need something like Impact Tremors on the field, so now we're up to a 4-card combo. Yeah, I don't feel too bad about including this. Unless, of course, someone decides to use this plus Hofri to wipe the entire board, including lands, using Hasted Spirit Mangaras. Yikes. Finally, we have some cards to help power the deck up a little in other ways, or provide some other stuff the deck can use on occasion. We'll call these utility cards. First up is Trionic Resonator, which is mostly here to double an ETB trigger or create an extra token copy of something with Hofri's ability. We also have Desecrated Tomb and Quintorius Field Historian to trigger when we exile cards from our graveyard with Hofri. Our spirits will get absolutely nuts with both Hofri and Quintorius in play. We also have Forbidding Spirit, which is both a spirit and basically a 10-cent ghostly prison thanks to its reusability in this deck. And we have Hoarding Dragon, to search for whatever artifact we need. Your opponents are really going to like him, especially when they realize that you searched for Skull Clamp. And let's move on once again, this time to our land base. I run more utility lands that can be sacrificed than I usually do, thanks to Sun Titan being in our game plan. For this we've got Ash Barrens, Buried Rune, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Myriad Landscape, Ghost Quarter, Tectonic Edge, Haunted Fengraph, and Scavenger Grounds. Our other utility lands are Emeria the Sky Rune, Thespian Stage, and the color-fixing Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, and Rupture Spire. As you can see, I've put some in here that can give our opponents colors, thanks to us also running Grimoire of the Dead. There's not a big chance we'll need their colors, but still a decent one. For our basic lands, we're running 9 mountains and 12 plains. We've now gone through all 100 cards of our deck. But wait, you say, what about my favorite segment? The final countdown! Well, I'm pleased to tell you that it's still here, but today we're going to be looking at the best upgrades for this deck, so these are necessarily not in the 99. Let's start with the most boring one at number 5. Boring because it's obvious. Panharmonicon. Yarok the Desecrated is Panharmonicon in creature form, so naturally this is great for an ETB deck. This deck isn't pure ETB, but it's close enough that this is a big upgrade over almost anything. At number 4 we have Mistmoon Griffin. Okay, so this card isn't like some crazy expensive card, it costs 35 cents. But it's also an infinite ETB and Death Trigger combo with Hofri in the deck. You do need a third card like Impact Tremors to actually make it useful, but if you've got that, your opponents are out of business. Now moving on to number 3, we have the $10 artifact, Lithoform Engine. We're already running Trionic Resonator, so running its big brother probably would be a good idea, if you can afford it. This version is far more versatile, as it copies activated abilities in addition to triggered abilities. We aren't running many instants and sorceries, but it can also copy a permanent when we're casting it, and we've got tons of those. Got 10 mana to spend? Well, with this on the field, that's 2 Warstorm Surges. And on to number 2, where we begin to get into the real meaty cards. This one is an auto-include if you already own it, and a wallet breaker if you don't. It's Anointed Procession. When Hofri exiles a creature from your graveyard when it dies, you'll now create 2 token copies of that creature. You only need one of those 2 to die in order to bring the exiled card back to your graveyard for reanimation, letting you both have your cake and eat it. At number 1, we don't have our most expensive card, that was Anointed Procession, but we do have an expensive card that is absolutely fantastic here, and that card's name is one that I'll get to in a second. First, I just Sneak Attack! It's Sneak Attack, get it? I just Sneak Attacked you with... whatever. Sneak Attack would do absolute work as an upgrade in this deck, and I would recommend swapping out one of the sacrifice outlets for it, because Sneak Attack is itself a bit like a sacrifice outlet. Pay 1 red mana to cheat out any creature in your hand, but sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Luckily, we're running a hefty reanimation package, and a bunch of death triggers, so that really shouldn't be a problem. Even if you don't have reanimation cards handy, you can Sneak Attack all your best creatures out, they die at the beginning of your end step, and then you create beefed up token copies of them with Hofri. Not bad for one day's killing. Okay, before we go, I would like you to click on the like and subscribe buttons even if you didn't enjoy the video. I just want everyone in the world to click on them forever. Is that too much to ask for? Also, I want to thank my patrons who are contributing $10 or more, also known as the Mythic Commander tier. Normally, I'd just be throwing their names into the credits, but I forgot to add that to last week's video, and I feel bad. So please, take a moment to listen, and allow me to read their names off this handy list I made specially for this occasion. The Egg. Yeah, that's the end of the list. Alright everyone, no real news today. I'm just going to continue to build Strixhaven commanders for the next couple of weeks. Now you all run off and enjoy your weekend, and I'll do the same. See you next time.